this is Joe Perry.
And Steven Tyler of Aerosmith for Red. You know, it's okay to rock and roll and party down. Just don't get in that 2,000-pound bullet when you're done and cocked. And please don't drink and drive. I'm the one that jaded you.
A reminder that friends don't let friends drive drunk. A public service message brought to you by the Ad Council, U.S. Department of Transportation, National Association of Broadcasters, and RAD.
WKPW, Kingsport West, Washington, D.C.
The following is a presentation of unidentified entertainment and 22nd century radio. Manassas, Fairfax, Washington, D.C.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yay!
There will be no foolish wand-waving or silly incantations in this class.
What is happening in Hollywood that a guy that tough will be on the street waving a gun, screaming, "They are trying to kill me"? Yeah. What's going on? Why is Dave Chappelle going to Africa? Why does Mariah Carey make a $100 million deal and take her clothes off on TRL? A weak person cannot get to sit here and talk to you. There ain't no weak people talking to you. So what is happening in Hollywood? Nobody knows. The worst thing to call somebody is crazy, is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. That's bull. These people are not crazy. They're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
Welcome to voice print identification. When you see the red light go on, would you please state in the following order: your destination, your nationality, and your full name. Surname first, Christian name, and initial.
I am just a figment of your imagination.
EWA 471, contact 134.4. 344, what's this?
Harry, keep an eye on that point out I gave you. He's on 122.5. I'll be right back.
Indianapolis Center, you have any traffic for Aries 31?
Aries 31 negative. The only traffic I have is a TWA L1011 in your 6 o'clock position, range 15 miles. And an Allegheny DC-9 in your 12 o'clock position, 50 miles. Stand by one, I'll take a look at broadband of it.
Aries 31 has traffic 2 o'clock, slightly above and descending.
Aries 31, roger. I have a primary target about that position now. I have no known high-altitude traffic. Stand by one, I'll check low, over. Dick, will you check low altitude and see if they know who this is?
Center Aries 31. The traffic's not lower than us. It's 1 o'clock now, still above me and descending.
Aries 31, can you say aircraft type?
Negative, Center. No distinct outline. To tell you the truth, the target is rather brilliant. That's the brightest anti-collision lights I think I've ever seen. Alternating white to red. Colors are a little striking.
Center, this is TWA 517. Traffic now looks like extra bright landing lights. I thought Aries had his landing lights on.
Could be a satellite.
Aries 31, I have the primary target now in your 10 o'clock position, 5 miles.
I've never seen anything like that.
About an SR-71? The traffic is proceeding northeastbound, no altitude readout.
Roger, Center. It doesn't appear it's going to be a problem now. He's going to descend about 1,500 feet below me. Wait a second. Stand by one. Okay, Center. Aries 31, the traffic has turned. He's heading right for my windshield. We're turning right immediately and leaving flight level 350 now.
Aries 31, descend and maintain flight level 310. Break, Allegheny 444, turn right 30 degrees.
Get on the order of the 45th recon wing. See what the hell they could be testing up there.
Aries jet descending to
This
maintain
is Indianapolis Center. Do you have any test operations restricted area 2508?
Aries 31, roger. Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Roger, Aries 31. Continue descent at your discretion, over.
Okay, Center. Senate pilot's discretion is approved. The traffic is approaching head-on, ultra bright, and really moving. And right by us, right now. Now, that was really close. Aries 31 is out of 340 on the traffic path.
Ask them if they want to report officially.
TWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. TWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We don't want to report.
Aries 31, do you wish to report a UFO? Over.
Negative, we don't want to report one of those either.
Aries 31, do you wish to file a report of any kind? Over.
I wouldn't know what kind of report to file, Senator.
Aries 31, me neither. I'll try to track traffic to destination. Over.
Live from the suburbs of Washington, D.C., proudly broadcasting just minutes from the United States Capitol, you're listening to Episode 3 of Time and Space, the obligatory episode about Stanton Friedman, religion, exopolitics, science, ufology, justice, sports, and more, the new space race, energy technology, the cosmic Watergate, extraterrestrials, biblical archaeology, films and television, reports on FIFA and motorsports, all the latest from UFO resources, such as the Mutual UFO Network, the Fund for UFO Research, the UFO Research Center, NASA, SETI, and more. Stories from and about major news networks, including NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, the BBC, and Fox. Fascinating interviews with paranormal insiders, religious teachers, subject matter experts, skeptics, debunkers, and as many comedians as we can manage to lure onto the show. Time and Space is produced by H-Town. It's his world and we're just living in it. Our executive chef is Mike Fay. Our executive slacker and street correspondent is TK. And your host, of course, is Mike Smith. On this episode, we'll be discussing the work of nuclear physicist and grandfather of ufology, Stanton Friedman. We'll speak to Rob Swiatek. We'll try new installments of What's Today's Date, Name All 8, and How Do I Cook That? We'll consider highlighting the Skeptibunker of the Week. You can try to contact us 24/7, 365. Feel free to leave a voicemail on Mike Smith's personal cell phone, 571-721-9525. If what you have to say isn't offensive, insulting, or unreasonable, and fits the show, are we asking that much? We might call you back. Look up.
You look in the sky a lot?
And calm down. You're finally listening to Episode 3 of Time and Space. And now, a legend in his own mind, your host, Mike Smith.
You are listening to Episode 3 of Time and Space. I'm your host, Mike Smith, sitting here with our producer, H-Town. We've been digging around looking at news stories and trying to determine what exactly we wanted to contribute to the show. But before we get to any of the news desks or any of that other interesting stuff, I mean, there's just too much to pick from. I'd like to cover real quick what it is we're going to be doing on this particular episode, just to get that out of the way. This is Episode 3, the obligatory episode about Stanton Friedman. Stanton Friedman, busy guy, kind of cute upcoming appearances. Thought we'd flip through and take a look at what he's got here. Friday and Saturday, October 29th through November 1st. He'll be at the 2nd Annual Burlington Vortex Conference in Burlington, Wisconsin. And then Thursday through Sunday, November 12th through 15th, he'll be done at the UFOinfoweekend.com. It just says conference near Kennedy Space Center, Florida. So we'll be talking to Friedman later in the episode and covering some of his work. Stanton Friedman's a professional ufologist currently residing in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, the original civilian investigator of the Roswell incident. He originally studied physics at the University of Chicago, worked as a nuclear physicist on research and development projects for several large companies, and is a dual citizen of the United States and Canada. I'll be asking him which hockey team he roots for. Fredericton, New Brunswick, by the way, is up just a little bit.
It's in the Canadian Maritimes.
Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. Just a little bit east of Maine, I guess. He's actually an hour ahead of us. Yeah, that's right. Even though we're all the way out here on the East
Coast. And here's another trivia question for you.
Uh-oh.
Name. They're gone now. They have moved.
There was a team in Fredericton?
There was an AHL hockey team in Fredericton.
Right.
What was the nickname?
I feel like I should be able to come up with that because I had heard so much AHL stuff as I was growing up. That seems like a name that should jump right out. But
slightly famous team. They were.
I was going to say
the Fredericton. I believe they were the Fredericton Canadians.
Really?
Yes, I know there was a team in Moncton called the Moncton Hawks.
Oh, okay. We'll have to check with him and see what he's got to say about that. That'll be pretty interesting.
Any games?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, you would think he'd be all into it up there. Certainly, plenty of teams to pick from in the area. So,
I would just like to add that over this past summer, I went to Ottawa.
Oh yes.
I went to Quebec.
Right.
It is a absolutely gorgeous country.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. I went to Ottawa, and it's just a marvelous, fabulous place.
I never know what you're going to say. In contrast, your review of the city of Philadelphia maybe not so favorable.
No, no. I wasn't a fan of Philly, and for that matter, I didn't really like Camden, New Jersey, which is where we saw the concert either. Camden is right across the Ben Franklin Bridge, and I think I saw more per capita strip clubs in the 4-block area that we drove around trying to find the Tweeter Center.
Wow.
All we saw was strip club, burned out, battle, inner city shot up building as we drove in going, wow, do you think we should lock the car here?
I think that it's a city on the rise.
Camden?
It's a city, yeah.
Well, so I'm looking also at a news story, and I realize this isn't just. Do we do music too?
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe you can answer this question. I'm just going to read you the headline. Okay?
Sure.
Asia steps in to support the dollar. Did they do that in the heat of the moment? Right.
Stanton Friedman graduated from the University of Chicago, earning his Bachelor of Science in 1955 and a master's degree in nuclear physics in 1956. He was employed for 14 years as a nuclear physicist for such companies as General Electric, General Motors, Westinghouse, TRW, Aerojet, General Nucleonics,
and
McDonnell Douglas.
There's an Aerojet office out by my house.
Is there really?
In Bristow, Gainesville.
Oh, okay.
No kidding. It's across from the. It's kind of diagonal up towards by Nissan.
Wow.
On the same street as Nissan, up the street to the left.
How far are you from Dulles Airport? I mean, it's not quite due north.
15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're already west of Dulles Airport,
yeah,
right?
We're past
Technically,
Dulles.
yeah.
Ooh, the Minnesota Twins have scored. No, they have not.
No, they have not.
Corrected.
Friedman worked on advanced classified programs on nuclear aircraft, fission and fusion rockets, compact nuclear power plants for space applications. Since the 80s, he's done related consultant work in the radon detection industry. Professional affiliations have included the American Nuclear Society, the American Physical Society, and the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, who I actually used to work for. It was one of our job sites, doing all the alarm stuff that I had done. So we'll be talking to Friedman in just a little while. We're also going to be talking to Rob Swiatek. Swiatek, a long-term, widely respected UFO researcher, is the Secretary-Treasurer for the Fund for UFO Research. We'll double-check with him. And he's on the National Board of Directors for the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. That's how I actually found out about him. He was doing an interview on a podcast that I heard. I was absolutely fascinated with it. And he has worked with Friedman before, so being he's a local guy, we'll talk to Swiatek later on. You're listening to episode 3 of Time and Space, and Howard and I are just kind of sitting here piecing stuff together. Going to take bits and pieces out of this recording to patch together what we wanted to do the first episode here. We got a whole bunch of different stuff to kind of cover, and I wouldn't actually know exactly where to start, although I suppose introducing Howard would be a good thing to do here. Howard is the producer of the show, goes by the nickname H-Town, something I believe you got somewhere along your illustrious retail career, isn't that correct?
I think it was because I actually lived in Houston, and the nickname for
Certainly,
Houston is H-Town.
That's
correct.
That's
where it came from.
Yes, but it sort of stuck to you at some point. You brought it back to Virginia for a little while, because I remember you...
Yeah, I think so. I think it was kind of like luggage. I kind of kept it forever. So.
And you still root for some of the Houston teams, of course, the Cougars.
I root for the Houston Cougars. I spent a little bit of time at Houston.
And you're not technically a Houston alum, is that correct?
I am not a Houston alum, but I do follow them.
Nobody lives down there anymore either, do they?
My sister does.
She is still down there.
My sister, her 2 kids, and husband.
Lucky her.
And some of my old fraternity brothers.
Yeah.
Who
the ones who haven't been arrested.
Just one was arrested.
just the one.
Just the one, and it was in New Orleans. Something about punching a cop on.
Speaking of being arrested, we're going to flip on the NORAD TK tracker, and hopefully at least hear from TK at some point later in the episode. Tim has been out and about. Let's say he's one of those guys that's had some off the field issues, but we're going to talk to him in a little bit and hopefully give him a little perspective on some of those issues and see if we can't give him something positive to look forward to. Our executive chef is Mike Fay. We'll be asking him how do you cook that a little bit later on. Also, we'll try to talk to him and see what he's got to say. I was curious to ask him if he's got any recipes so you could take, a variety of different places. I mean, we're shooting probes into the moon. If they actually hit water down there, do you think there'd be any fishing to be done?
That's a good question.
And if you catch a fish, what are you going to do with it?
I did hear that there was a new restaurant on the moon.
Also, yeah.
It had really good food, but no atmosphere.
How do you cook a Nobel Peace Prize? What do you have for dinner to celebrate that win?
I think you order Chicago pizza.
Oh, yes, of course.
You get that.
So
you know the way they say that there's... I came across this...
I should have thought of that. That was pretty good.
See, you have far more information on that than I do.
Yes. I've done a substantial amount of research.
Oh, wow. The fattest city is getting a makeover. Surprisingly enough, it is not Houston, Texas. The fattest city, apparently, is Huntington, West Virginia.
Oh, God.
Now, trivia time, Mike Smith. What university is in Huntington, West Virginia? And, for bonus points on this, give me the school's nickname.
Would that be the Thundering Herd of Marshall?
Oh, wow. He got it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's like the first time that he's actually gotten me.
All right. That doesn't fit specifically into one of the news desks as far as space, energy, no. However, that seems to be pretty important breaking news. Let me get this straight. Huntington, West Virginia has, on average, the fattest citizens?
The news is weary of being stuck with what they call the false label of America's unhealthiest city. Huntington residents are offering a weary welcome to a celebrity chef who hopes to help them shape up.
Really? And who's the celebrity chef?
Jamie Oliver? Couldn't be that much of a celebrity. I've never heard of him.
Wow.
So fattest city isn't one of our news desk subjects that we're supposed to be covering?
But since we have our own executive chef, I think we're going to have to talk to him about that and see what he's got to say.
Maybe he's heard of Jamie Oliver.
That's entirely possible. Or maybe he hasn't.
Well, there's that. Oliver has done shows focused on improving school lunch meals and other dietary matters with an aim toward getting people eating healthier and living better. He is apparently British. But
he's apparently British. I thought you were Australian.
Jamie Oliver is starring in a reality TV show, of course, slated to be broadcast next year on one of the channels.
What a coincidence.
That has letters of the alphabet. We'll just leave it at that.
I see. Thank you.
I don't want to go, and tell them that, have to throw money because we said a name of it.
Yes, because we ordered some fries and got the wrong size.
And apparently, if we're ever talking about the game that ends the NFL season, we can't call it that game because it's been trademarked.
That's right.
So just that's sports related, but we're not going to touch on NFL. But just as an FYI.
All right. Well, these caution wet floor signs have been brought to you by Time and Space from 22nd Century Radio.
I worked in industry for 14 years on a wide variety of advanced nuclear and space systems, and you learn to get your facts first before reaching a judgment, to hold things in abeyance until you get more data, to try to reach conclusions that are only fact-based, and sometimes to say, I don't have enough data. I'm stuck. I can't go further in this path. I'll try another one. And it helped me in an entirely different sort of way, because I bring to bear on this subject of flying saucers, this controversial, exciting, stimulating, frustrating subject, several special features related to my background. One is, many scientists will try to tell you you can't get here from there, flying saucers would violate the laws of physics, stuff like that. Well, I worked on far-out advanced propulsion systems. I spent 3 years working on nuclear airplanes. Now, this wasn't just 2 professors and 3 grad students at General Electric Aircraft Nuclear Propulsion Department. We were spending $100 million per year in 1958, employed 3,500 people, of whom 1,100 were scientists and engineers, so professional activities. I worked on nuclear fission rockets for Westinghouse Astronuclear Lab. We actually tested, we did operate jet engines on nuclear power, I should add, for GE. The program was canceled, of course, but that's beside the point. At Westinghouse, we tested nuclear rocket engines on the ground. There were a whole family of them. We worked on them. Los Alamos National Laboratory worked on them. Aerojet General worked on them. Our biggest was only 1,100 megawatts. Los Alamos tested one 4,400 megawatts. That's twice the power of the old Grand Coulee Dam in something that was less than 7 feet wide, 7 feet in diameter. These were real, in other words. They weren't paper studies. I worked on nuclear fusion at Aerojet General Nucleonics. That was a paper study. We spent $9 million from the Air Force. And it turns out nuclear fusion, which is the most abundant source of energy in all our lives, the sun is a fusion factory after all. If you use the right stuff in the right way, and there's no point in doing it if you don't, you can kick particles out the back end that have 10 million times as much energy per particle as in a chemical rocket. The point here is that working on advanced propulsion systems allows you to reject the silly arguments of what I call the ancient academics and fossilized physicists who, sitting happily at their desk, think they know all about what's going on in the world. Now, these programs and several others I worked on were all classified. We didn't publish in the physics journals. We published technical reports. We had to satisfy a customer. So that's one thing. The technology arguments don't stand up against UFO reality. The second thing is that I worked under security for 14 years. And I've reached 4 major conclusions about flying saucers. The first is that the evidence is overwhelming. Planet Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft. In other words, some, underline 27 times, some UFOs are alien spacecraft. Most are not. I don't care about them. The second conclusion is that the subject of flying saucers represents a kind of cosmic Watergate, meaning some few people within major governments have known since at least 1947, when 2 crashed flying saucers are recovered with bodies in New Mexico, that indeed some UFOs are alien spacecraft. The third conclusion, none of the arguments made against the first 2 conclusions stand up under careful scrutiny. And the last one, of course, that we're dealing with the biggest story of the millennium. But let's go back to conclusion number 2. Cosmic Watergate. I worked under security. I wrote classified documents. I understand how security works. And I have been to 20 different document archives, Canada and the United States. So those people who say governments can't keep secrets really don't know what they're talking about. As an example of that...
This is Time and Space, hosted by Mike Smith.
I would like to just go ahead and introduce Mr. H-Town here. He is going to be my co-host for the day and was supposed to be the sort of producer soundboard operator or whatever, but has ended up being co-host as Tim is MIA right now, and we're going to touch on that in just a little while because it's just that much fun.
Should we just put a low jack in here?
So welcome H-Town. Thank you for coming in and stepping up and being the co-host of the episode. I appreciate that.
Should we put a low jack in, Tim?
I think that might actually be the proper way to handle the situation, because otherwise we can't possibly figure out where he is or what he's doing or why he hasn't managed to show up. But you can also expect, I can promise you this, you can expect some frequent interruptions. It's kind of a crazy Sunday. Howard just flipped it on. We're looking at Vickers and now Mr. Stremme, David Stremme.
The Blue Deuce is in front.
In the 12 car. They're on lap 135 of 300, so not quite halfway through, and it looks like the leader is Kurt Busch right now, so we'll touch back on that in just a little while. Howard, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Us. Thank you for joining us, even though us wouldn't be us if it wasn't us sitting here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've left me speechless
You're
with
welcome.
that introduction.
I'm sure that I have. On this episode, this is episode 3. If you're listening and you're actually hearing this recording for the first time, well,
Ian and Andrew, go to bed.
Congratulations. You are the big prize winner. This is episode 3 of a series of shows called Time and Space, and this particular one is the obligatory episode about Stanton Friedman. If you don't know who Stanton Friedman is, well, you better ask somebody. On this episode, we're going to be looking at Stanton Friedman and his work, and we're just kind of doing that because, frankly, and this is where I just immediately am going to have to engage you, Howard, in actually talking about this and understanding what's going on. In the UFO community, Stanton Friedman is considered the sort of grandfather of ufology. He was the first civilian investigator of the Roswell case, and he's just a guy that's kind of a touchstone for a lot of people. We're going to talk about several different aspects of his work and good stuff and bad stuff and all that kind of thing. But I just figured I would get this.
Can I interrupt with something?
You can. I just figured I'd get this one out of the way on our list of episodes to have and go from there.
I'm new at this whole thing.
You are.
And Roswell, is that an important thing? Is Roswell, is that a city?
We're also going to be talking to Rob Swiatek, a local physicist that's been involved since the 1960s in UFO investigations. And we're going to touch on a couple of news desks that we do here on Time and Space. Today we're planning on doing one from religion and possibly one from motorsports when we get that far. We'll talk to TK on the phone since he's MIA. We'll try to track down Mike Fay, the official chef of the show, and we'll play a couple of games. Have a good time with that. And yes, Roswell would probably be something that would, I don't know, it's kind of important, depending, I guess, on how you look at it and how much you consider it to be an important event in the history of ufology, really not just in the United States, but worldwide. So, it would slightly be important. It's fine. Here, I'd like to talk also for a minute about our technical problems for the past few weeks, because this is downright ridiculous what we've been dealing with. Let's be honest. How many episodes? Now, we did one at your house here, where we are.
Which went okay with, for a first time.
I thought it went very well.
With the exception of the recording.
I thought it went very well, yes, with that small minor oversight. The exception of the recording, yes, exactly.
If you could have actually had playback, I think it would have been okay.
That audio was corrupted, so for those of you who are going to join us on the internet and try to track down episodes of this show, you are not going to find audio for episode 2, no matter how hard you look, because we simply don't have it. It was corrupted, it did not work out very well, and, well, I don't know what else to say about that. But this episode of Time and Space brought to you by Estrada Sunglasses. Estrada! We're enjoying watching some of the commercials on TV here. The Tony Stewart Burger King commercial right now with Estrada and Carrot Top. Estrada! I'm sorry, I find that funny. So, anyway, the equipment the first couple of weeks has just been a joke. And honestly, you can start by looking at my Sony Vaio laptop that is literally, I mean, the power...
I think he's trying to jumpstart it.
This is exactly... That is exactly what's going on. That is ridiculous. I have patch cords, little patch jumper alligator clip cables that I bought at Walmart when I was down at Deep Creek Lake with Faye. I had accidentally ripped the power pins out of the back of this laptop. I now have alligator clips hooking my slashed up power cable to this laptop. How the thing still works, I don't know, but I've gotten a full, I'd say 5.5 years out of this Sony Vaio, and this thing, it refuses to go down, so, you know, keep your fingers crossed, I guess. I don't know, but this thing has been something else. And the other equipment, we're dealing with who makes the soundboard? Is that a Yamaha?
That's a Yamaha.
It's a Yamaha soundboard.
They don't just make motorcycles, apparently.
A Yamaha soundboard that is probably, I don't know what the list price of that thing. It's probably a couple $100.
When it was new, it was a couple thousand.
$2,000. We bought this thing used for $25. Thank you very much. Be looking for some sort of a refund check in the mail. So we're using a very fancy professional soundboard that we got for dirt cheap, but you know, it works out. It's just kind of, I mean, I can't complain. It's the way it goes. But that's my Ghetto laptop and the Ghetto equipment that we've been dealing with, which is just straight up pathetic. So Stanton Friedman has been investigating the flying saucer phenomenon for close to 40 years, and he is our featured guest on this episode. We have had some real fun trying to track down Mr. Friedman. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. If you're listening to this as some sort of podcast or recording, you're going to enjoy this because starting in August, we tried to get this episode together and record it. And in the course of doing so, I had actually an interview lined up with Friedman just a couple of weeks ago. And do the recording by myself and had so many technical problems, I had to bail and wrote the guy an email and said, look, I'm sorry, we're having technical problems. I just can't record this today. You know, can you get back with us? Well, Friedman, and this is something we'll touch on later in the episode, Friedman was heading on an overseas trip over to the Baltics to try to, do some investigation or vacationing or whatever it is that he wanted to do over there. Theories abound. And he was very cordial about it and said, okay, no problem, I'm going to go ahead and, just bail on this with you, and we'll get back together in a couple of weeks. So we do have an interview with Friedman lined up that's going to occur here in the next couple of weeks, sometime in mid-October, which I'm very much looking forward to. And we'll go ahead and, touch on that later. But for the meantime, I'm going to talk about Friedman a little bit and try to set up for the listeners. If you don't know who Stanton Friedman is, you better ask somebody. You better get your information together. If you're going to track with this show and try to understand the UFOs and the religion and the whole everything that we're twisting together here trying to have fun, you have got to figure out who some of these key people are. And Friedman is definitely one of those key people. So Stanton Friedman, that's who the episode is about. Again, popular researcher, speaker, given hundreds of lectures around the world, all kinds of different places. Won a debate at Oxford about, whether the existence of extraterrestrial life was something that was worth investigating and all this type of thing. And he seems to be on top of everyone's list. All the podcasts and people that I've listened to have done some sort of a show about Friedman that just generally involves his work, his background, his information, the different stuff that he's been trying to, put forth, and we're going to investigate some of his work so that we can go ahead and check him off the list. I mean, I'd like to go back to him as an interview at some point, but we're going to go ahead and check him off the list of people that we are trying to cover on this show.
Well, I've given over 700 lectures. I've only had 11 hecklers, and 2 of them were drunk. And many of these are professional places and groups of engineers and scientists as well as universities and stuff. But I give 4 reasons why the big shots of science and journalism haven't jumped on the pro-UFO bandwagon. As you correctly say, they have not. One is these are rules of operation, and this applies to any field that they don't like, call it paranormal, if you will. One, what the public doesn't know, I'm not going to tell them. So you don't find references to the large-scale UFO studies in the literature of those who say there aren't any UFOs. Two, don't bother me with the facts. My mind's made up. My classmate Carl Sagan said in several places, there are interesting UFO sightings that are reliable, that aren't reliable, sorry. There are reliable sightings that aren't interesting, but there are no interesting and reliable sightings. Sounds very profound. Of course, he gives no reference. And the fact is, the situation is exactly the opposite. On that biggest study ever done, Blue Book Special Report 14, they did a quality evaluation of 3,201 sightings. They found the higher the quality, the greater the reliability, if you will, the more likely to be unexplainable. Just the opposite of what Carl said. So the third rule for debunking, if you will, is if you can't attack the data, attack the people. It's easier. So how come UFOs are only seen by kooks and quacks and uneducated people out in the boonies? That's nonsense. Engineers, scientists, PhDs, chemists, doctors, psychiatrists have all seen UFOs and have all been abducted too, incidentally, which is another story. And the fourth reason is, the fourth rule of operation, if you will, is do your research by proclamation. Investigation is too much trouble, and most people won't know the difference anyway. And so with these rules, you prove everything that anybody else says is true that you don't want to believe is true can't possibly be true, because you, smart person, have figured that all out already. And so I don't show much mercy for these guys. I feel sorry for the students who have to put up with the phony baloney stuff that's out there. Now, the press, remember, both groups have an additional problem here. They would have to admit that they've ignored this huge story for roughly 60 years. We're coming up on the 60th anniversary of Roswell next year, so let's call it 60 years. And I was there for the 50th, and the final speaker, and I expect to be there for the 60th, presuming I'm alive at the time. And it is an admission that many people, how many newspapers would like to say, look, we've totally ignored the cosmic Watergate. We think in the United States, at least, it's much more important to talk about, who was that girl that, Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, that was a very important story. Spend an enormous amount of effort on Monica Lewinsky. There was Elian Gonzalez, the little Cuban boy. What should happen to him? That occupied the newspaper headlines for months. And there are a number of other stories like this that they go crazy with. But they've ignored the fact that the public has been lied to over and over again by governments all over the world. One of the papers on my website, www.stantonfriedman.com, is Government UFO Lies. I was presented at the Mutual UFO Network Symposium last year, the annual symposium. Had a limited amount of time, so I couldn't cover all the lies, but enough to be interesting, you could say. So this ego part of it, is an important thing. Newspapers don't, and scientists don't want to admit that they've missed the boat, and missed it big.
You're listening to Time and Space on 22nd Century Radio.
News team, assemble!
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Now, we've been very concerned and curious and mystified by what's been happening.
This is important. The race is not yet over.
Well, folks, it's live television. In a situation like this, I know you understand that mistakes happen. To err is to human, but to really follow up requires a computer, and we've had some computer difficulty.
There are a few successes to report, but the outlook is very, very grim.
This is my last broadcast as the anchor man of the CBS Evening News, and that's the way it is. Friday, March 6th, 1981.
You look in the sky a lot?
This is Time and Space with your host, Mike Smith. All right. So I have here hot off the CNN.com website that NASA today on So I have here in my hot little hand off of the CNN.com website that on October 9th, NASA crashed a rocket and satellite onto the moon in search of water.
Yeah.
Do they think one of the
big news past couple of days?
Do they think that, like, you know, Armstrong left like a canteen up there?
Yes, that must be it.
NASA craft a $79 million mission.
Yes.
$79 million.
That's right.
You know, they could have just given me like $5 million, and I could have told them there's no water up there. And you know what?
And you
I got
would be wrong.
I got a 50% chance of being right.
That's right. True. Right.
Flip
That's
a coin.
true.
I mean, come on. Now, does it really matter if there's water on the moon?
I don't know if it matters.
I mean, serious. Why did we spend $80 million to crash something onto the moon to look for water?
Now, we could sit here and read the news stories. Let me jump to one of the other stories that came out earlier this week. Actually, this was also from today.
Real men don't eat quiche. NASA televised live images of the lunar crater observation and sensing satellite.
Before we get to one of the other stories, hang on a minute, because let's take a look at this. Let's look through. You said you were looking at the CNN story. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking on Fox right now. You see if there's justification as to why they did it. Why did they go? Why did they do this?
Because the critics hate bill goes too far. CBS and Cablevision reached a deal. Boy, I'm looking. I see. Okay, I stand corrected. The golfer lost his arm in an alligator attack in South Carolina. He was looking for water.
Wow.
And he put it in the wrong place.
Excellent.
He was looking for water, and he didn't charge $79 million.
Nice.
I'm looking, seriously, I'm looking, where would it be? Where am I looking? I'm looking in the wrong place because I'm scanning right now.
Okay, because according to the Fox article, it says scientists hope to be able to scan... I'm sorry, let me back this up. There's a big plume.
Eat it, Freddy's the devil.
We saw a crater, we saw a flash. 4 crucial minutes, rocket stage, vast plume of moon dirt that scientists predicted...
Oh, there it is.
What remains to be seen is whether the crash has created the vast plume of moon dirt that scientists predicted would blast out of the crater up to heights of 6.2 miles, where it could be lit up by the sun and visible to observers on Earth. Scientists hope to be able to scan that portion of the plume from space and to determine if any water ice was present in the debris cloud. Finding proof of buried water ice, long suggested by the presence of hydrogen-bearing material at the lunar South Pole, could be a boon for NASA since it could be a potential resource for future astronauts. So, I mean, you know, okay, if we're going to be doing any moon missions, if there's a way that we could tap into a water resource there, that would certainly...
Okay.
If you look at it that way, that's certainly a pretty strong argument.
I found something else on that regarding the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
Somebody has written an article that perhaps Obama should have duplicated your efforts and won a Toastmaster award.
Yeah.
The Nobel Prize.
That's right.
So, you know, I didn't give you enough credit for winning the Toastmaster if they want to give it to the president.
See, now again, like the thing about not turning in any of my schoolwork when I was in college so it couldn't be tracked back to me later, right? That's exactly the path that I'm on. I started at Toastmasters, working my way up.
There you go, chipping away.
Next
thing you know, they're going to give you $79 million so you can shoot at the moon.
Next stop, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
There you go. I just saw the headline and thought that was pretty
nice.
Funny. That, you know.
Excellent.
So the thing is called a Via Cross. Oh wait, that was the old Isuzu. It was a Via Cross. They even had the Tony Stewart edition.
No,
wait, that was the Iron Man edition. It wasn't Tony Stewart. It was somebody else Stewart. He was known as the
No,
Iron Man or something.
This
He
is
did the Iron Man triathlon.
This is the L Cross.
The L Cross.
Yes.
That's like the lacrosse. It's like the GM car. I wonder if GM had
No.
anything to do
It's
with
a
this.
game. See, you got a couple of sticks right up there on the
L-Cross.
wall.
Yeah,
Right. You got the sticks with the little nets on the end.
Minutes before its impact, the satellite guided a rocket into the Cabeus crater in an effort to kick up enough dust to help the L Cross find whether there is any water in the moon's soil. I guess a GPS wasn't there. Or if short of a GPS, you know, they could have used one of those they could have used like Google Maps.
Yeah.
They could have used the Google. L-Cross carried spectrometers.
Spectrometers.
Right. That's what I said. Well, here's a good thing. NASA is clearly on the job because they used a visible camera and a visible radiometer as opposed to the invisible camera and invisible radiometer. So NASA has their scientists working overtime now.
They do.
Because
they are on top of the situation.
Now, if they had used the invisible camera, how would they know where somebody put it?
Now see, if you're looking at this scientifically, there's another story somewhat related that I don't know if this is supposed to be sneaking under the radar or what exactly is happening here, but also in the news today, Friday, October 9th, 2009, you're listening to episode 3 of Time and Space, and right now we're actually working on a space news desk. The headline reads, Europa's ocean has oxygen and may support life. Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter, is flowing with a buried liquid water ocean that contains much more oxygen than previously thought. I mean, I don't know how much more evidence needs to stack up until it's, it's kind of, there's got to be life there. We just haven't found it yet.
You know who the most excited people were about that?
Who's that?
The Mafia, because now they can put people in cement shoes and they can breathe underwater.
Just shoot them off to Jupiter?
Right! They're sitting there going...
They'll never be found.
They'll never be found. That's where Hoffa is. He's living under...
He's on Europa. Nice. There's no solid evidence for life for anywhere besides Earth, the article says, but Europa has long been considered a good place to look for biological activity. Europa's ocean lies beneath several miles of ice, so scientists wondered whether it has much oxygen, which is thought to be created at the surface by interaction with energetic charged particles, blah, 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 and so on and so forth.
Like I said, I'll go back to my previous statement that I think the Mafia is going to be very excited about this.
The global ocean on Europa contains about twice the liquid water of all the Earth's oceans combined.
Wow.
New research suggests there may be 100 times more oxygen than previously estimated. Not bad.
Like the Oilers.
Yes.
Like the Flames.
Yes.
But they're...
Your dad's a huge Canucks fan, right?
Huge Canucks fan.
Yeah.
We often call him a Canucklehead, sometime to his face. I just $140
right
to turn off the TV at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
If I was in the Central Time Zone, I would get the games.
I agree.
I would get it.
I agree.
But living here on the East Coast and getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
right?
Because my wife gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and is out
of
the house
that.
at 4:45, and the kids and I are out of the house at 6:15 every morning. There are not a lot of nights that end at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And it just doesn't happen, and it's a waste of money.
Yeah. No, I agree, especially if you're not, if you're missing most of the games that you'd be interested in because you're not even up. Yeah, I mean, it obviously doesn't make much sense. I wanted to throw one more. So I'm watching the clock here. We've only got a couple minutes left on this one recording set, which is fine. I was going to throw in one other story for the space desk. NASA telescope discovers giant ring around Saturn. I don't know if you saw this the other day, but this is actually pretty striking. Again, I've pulled it up off of Fox News. This one's from the Associated Press.
Oh, I have a question on
but
this. Is this the same thing that they use, like the ring around the toilet?
You know, and you're the king of making jokes on just every little aspect of anything. This ought to, I mean, what a perfect setup for you. Yes, the Spitzer Space Telescope,
named after Elliot Spitzer,
has discovered the biggest but never before seen ring around the planet Saturn. Yeah.
Nobody
of course
else saw
it's called the Spitzer.
Nobody else saw it.
It's never been seen before, and it's amazing because of the
I
sheer
saw a picture
size.
of it.
Yeah,
I saw a picture of
the
it.
sheer size of it is ridiculous. The bulk of the ring material, this article says, starts about 3.7 miles from the 3.7 million miles from the planet and extends outward about another 7.4 million miles. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's huge. That's quite large.
This is one supersized ring, said one of the authors, Ann Verberscher, an astronomer at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Her co-authors are Douglas Hamilton of the University of Maryland College Park and Michael Skrutsky, also of the University of Virginia. What's interesting is the elliptical orbit. Now, I know that there was a comment in here. The thin array of the thin array of ice and dust particles lies at the far reaches of the Saturnian system, and its orbit is tilted 27 degrees from the planet's main ring plane. It does say somewhere in here, paper discovery, supersized ring, orbits with Saturn's moon Phoebe, orbits within the ring is believed to be the source of the material. The ring also may answer the riddle of another moon, Lapidus.
Thank you very much.
If that's what that says, that might be a typo, or Ipidus, which has a bright side and a very dark side, which is sort of freakish.
It's just that good.
That's got to be a capital I. The ring circles in the same direction as Phoebe, while Ipidus, the other rings and most of Saturn's other moons, go the opposite way. Scientists think material from the outer ring moves inward and slams into Ipidus. I thought it was a pretty interesting story, and I think it's particularly interesting that we keep making these discoveries in our own solar system of late. All this stuff with the moon and Europa, and now this other thing around Saturn, this other gigantic ring that people, I mean, it just proves, anytime you ever hear a scientist say that we've learned everything we're going to learn or we know everything we need to know, it's obvious that that's really just ridiculous. The Spitzer mission, launched in 2003, is managed by JPL in Pasadena. Spitzer is 66 million miles from Earth in orbit around the Sun. So obviously it picked this thing up. So we're going to finish up.
It was in Pasadena? Was that Pasadena, Texas? I actually worked there in Pasadena, Texas.
I know you did. No, and
there is a NASA.
Yes, in fact, I'll click on this real quick and see what it says, because I don't know which Pasadena. It could be California, but it also could be Texas, especially considering that, I mean,
NASA
Houston
is there.
Yeah, definitely.
It also could be Pasadena, Maryland, but I don't believe
Pasadena City Code. This doesn't tell you anything. What is the point of this? Bing just came up and gave me a bunch of Pasadena stuff. How am I supposed to know?
Pasadena.
Managed by JPL. Well, wherever JPL is headed, Jet Propulsion Laboratories. It looks like it's Pasadena, California, but
no love for Pasadena.
It'd be much more interesting if it was Texas.
It was. You know,
I agree.
When I worked at the mall in Pasadena, there was a big statue.
I have a picture of this.
You have a picture of it.
Of the armadillo?
There was a cowboy. I mean, this thing was a large statue.
Yes, it was.
10 feet?
Yeah, absolutely, at least.
At least?
Tall.
Tall.
Sure.
Yes. Weighing.
Well, the armadillo is like the size of a small horse.
Right.
Which
there was a
not trying to be
cowboy,
funny, but
a cowboy riding an armadillo, bronze statue.
Yes, bronze statue.
I looked at that, and
fortunately protected from the environment safely.
Right.
In Pasadena Mall.
Inside Pasadena Mall. So if you're ever in Pasadena Town Square in Pasadena, Texas, if that building is still around,
shout out to H-Town.
Go look at the big armadillo.
If that building's still there.
I don't know if the building's there. I haven't been in Pasadena. I left Houston behind in 1995.
Is this not the same Pasadena Mall where not only did you work there, but wasn't there? Didn't you tell me a story about being there and there was a guy who was trying to jumpstart his car?
No, that was Sharpstown Mall that the guy was jumpstarting.
Jumpstarted the car and then the car took off on him.
Took off on him
because he left it in drive and hit your car.
And hit my car. Yes, I was involved in a not necessarily a hit and run because he left the information on my windshield on a piece of paper. He hit my 1991 Ford Mustang. And
yeah, that was the one with the tinted windows that you got a ticket for when you came up here. Yeah, it's good.
Illegal window tinting. You call the number that they give you, and you sit there, and they go, and it's not listed. I actually had to go to court. Then I had to contact the dealership in Houston that I bought the car at.
How bad is that?
And say, I need the bill that says that this was how I bought the car. And they proceeded to send it to me. I went to court. Well, you've got 2 weeks to take it off. It's window tinting. Give me a break.
Excellent.
And this cop turned around on Old Keene
That's pretty
Road.
bad.
He went past. I was going westbound. He was going eastbound on Old Keene Mill, and he turned around at the next intersection to bust me for illegal window tinting.
Thank you.
I think he really pulled me over because I was white.
I agree. What color was the car?
It was a white Mustang.
See, you're
dark
just broadcasting that message too loudly. That's exactly what it is. Foul ball. Only hope.
It was a long strike. So there's the story. There really is at least there was in 1995 or 1994 when I was there. So if it's gone, don't hate me. Email Mike Smith.
For those of you, right.
Email Mike Smith. He does have a picture of
it. If any of you ever actually hear this and want to go take a picture of it and send it to us, we'll send you a nice prize.
Absolutely, that is prize-worthy.
That is prize-worthy.
I think we can cough up like a can of WD-40. maybe some like bronze it or something for you to go polish the statue.
Yeah, some Brasso.
There you go, Brasso, not bronze it, Brasso. Maybe a can of WD-40 to oil and lubricate the cowboy, or oil and lubricate the armadillo, depending on what you want to oil and or lubricate.
All right, so the phrase that pays today: oil and lubricate your armadillo.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So ends the recording of Hour 1.
This is Time and Space with your host, Mike Smith.
WKPW, Kings Park West, Washington, D.C.